Let's take a look at another biblical contradiction. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. The fit for this video is a black and white version of Jim Lee's X-Men number 11. If we look in Exodus 6:3, we have the God of Israel introducing themselves a second time to Moses. And they say, I was known to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai. But my name Adonai, YHWH, the Tetragrammaton, I did not make known to them. And so this text quite clearly is indicating that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not know the name Adonai. And this conflicts with the book of Genesis. In Genesis 4:24, we have pretty early in the history of humanity the name of Adonai being known among humans, well before Abraham. And then in Genesis 15:7, God introduces themselves to Abraham explicitly as Adonai. They say, I am Adonai, who brought you up from Ur of the Chaldees to give you this land to possess. And in verse 8, Abraham responds, O Lord Adonai, YHWH, the Tetragrammaton, how will I know that I will possess it? So this is part of the introduction of the Abrahamic covenant, and Abraham is explicitly represented as knowing and calling on the name Adonai. Now if we go to Genesis 17, the narrator refers to Adonai, but says that they introduce themselves to Abraham as El Shaddai. And in isolation, that chapter doesn't represent Abraham knowing the name Adonai. So we seem to have a conflict here. And I think what is most likely is that the author of Exodus 6:3 had in front of them either the only version of the patriarchal narratives they knew, in which the patriarchs did not know the name Adonai, or the version of the patriarchal narrative that they considered authoritative or authentic, in which the patriarchs didn't know the name Adonai. Possibly there were other versions where they did know those names, but the author of Exodus 6:3 didn't like those versions. Either way, there has been editing to the version of Genesis that has come down to us, so that either that other tradition has been combined with the author of Exodus 6's tradition, or the name Adonai has been added to the book of Genesis in order to have Abraham be able to call explicitly on the name Adonai. And an interesting bit of data that might support the notion that the name Adonai is a secondary addition to the book of Genesis, at least in the mouths of the characters in Genesis, is that there is not a single personal name anywhere in the book of Genesis that has a Yahwistic theophoric element. In the rest of the Bible, Yahwistic theophoric elements predominate. Somewhere around 70 to 80% of the names in the Hebrew Bible have Yahwistic theophoric elements, and there are 0 in the book of Genesis. No one named a child or no author named a character after the deity Adonai. Now there are place names that have Yahwistic theophoric elements in the narrative, but none of the characters do, which is an interesting datum that I think lends support to the idea that as the patriarchal narratives developed, the deity Adonai was secondarily added to it. Now, there are going to be apologetic attempts to reread these texts and reinterpret them and engage in all kinds of tortured and creative eisegesis to try to make them agree. But those reinterpretations are always the work of folks who are approaching the text with the presupposition that they have to agree. If you are not approaching the text with that presupposition, you're not going to be intuitively incentivized to try to find those arguments convincing.